Hello, I'm BrigantiaBlackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to Pagan Tales for the final video of the series. We are going to end it by talking about the Norns. Now, for those unfamiliar, this is your real quick primer. The first the Norns really relate also to the Greek concept of the Fates, but this is in a more Nordic context. So the first Norn is Urdur, weird, which is the past or fate. Then there's Verdandi, what is presently coming into being. That's what she represents. And then there's Skuld, what shall be. Now, in Norse mythology, the Norns were the deciders and the creators for the fate of both gods and mortals. They live in a hall next to or Erdbrunner, which is the Well of Fate, which lies beneath Yggdrasil, which is the World Tree. And fate casting by them, it was done via casting lots, weaving cloth, carving symbols and runes onto wood, things of that nature. So now that we know that, let's get into it. Because the reason why we're talking about the Norns is because of their relation to fate and, of course, the new calendar year. And in modern culture, the calendar new year is a time that is absolutely buzzing with energy. And it is a sense that, when that clock strikes midnight on New Year's Eve, that everything is just starting over fresh. And that will of energy is really coming from the collective imaginations from what has become an established custom in our modern day culture. And it would be foolish to ignore that well of energy and not make use of it and not take it into account because it's real. It doesn't matter, when it was formed, it is real. And so that energy is available for us to draw upon. And at this time, people are thinking of the future. They're thinking of resolutions, choices, possibilities. And some are even thinking of fate itself. Now, one interpretation of the Norns and of the concept of fate generally is that it is a semi collaborative process. Now, the Norns are charged with deciding what will ultimately occur, but each individual, through their deeds, also shapes the threads that the Norns are weaving with. One of the things that the Norns are said to do is that they're taking up the water from that well, and that water is part of the shaping of fate. Well, we are also adding in our water into that well as well. So there is this exchange of energy. So our decisions and the consequences of our actions, they have a great deal to do to where and how we end up. In collaboration with what the Norns are getting up to, because they have their own ideas of how the universe should unfold. So this really is not something to be taken lightly. So, let's talk about trying to discern the path because, in the general course of things, we're not really super likely to be able to contact the Norns directly and get a heads up about our ultimate or even our immediate fate. They're busy. They are busy. If we contacted the divine being, they're probably going to be a bit closer to us. So, divination is a tool that we can use to get a glimpse of what's to come and whether or not we should continue on in the same vein. And so we have runes, Ogham, tarot, oracle cards, scrying, palmistry, many other things. I don't think that the method of divination really matters, only your ability to interpret the symbolic language of your chosen tool. We can also ask advice from ancestors, spirits we've worked with before, and our deities, of course, to get an idea about how to make better choices about our next steps. Meditation, the honest reflection of your own deeds and the train of thought that led to them for good or for ill, and listening to your intuition can also be invaluable for figuring out what path you really do need to be treading. So, when it comes to paths, this brings us to the concept of the weird. The Norns essentially construct what we understand as the weird. And what the weird is everything that is, seen and unseen, woven together by threads of energy, each thread essentially being a path. It's all connected. Everything is affecting the other. That is the weird. So, destiny, fate, it's all woven by the weird and by our own wills and by the will of the Norns. So, the weird is not something that we need seek escape or release from because it is the very cloth of reality. All we really need to do is figure out what thread is ours and then to play our part and be woven as we ought to be. So, I leave you with this. What will your story be? And honestly, I think that's the question that's been at the heart of all of the Pagan Tale videos. Every story we've talked about, every deity, every archetype, it's all affecting what will your story be? What do you learn from this? What do you take away from it? What does this teach you about yourself or the nature of reality or the people around you, or even just what it means to be human generally? It all affects what your story is ultimately going to be. So I hope you decide to make it a really good one. And of course, again, with that New Year's well of energy coming up, make use of that, especially if you're wanting to make significant changes so that you can craft a better story for yourself. So I hope you have enjoyed this year-long journey into Pagan Tales. I hope you've liked the series. Of course, let me know in the comments about your own relationship to the Norns and or with the Fates and this whole idea in general of what, where you are with that and why and everything else. I think that could be a really interesting discussion. So definitely speak up if you have thoughts or worrying. And just thank you for sticking with me through the entirety of this year-long journey. But on that note, I must go. I must let you get back to the remaining days and hours of the Yuletide celebration and you know, just bye for now.